Join us for the very first IFL Live at London's Indigo at the O2, Sunday, August the 13th, with me, Coogan Cassius, and some very special guests. Eddie Hearn, Darren Barker, Johnny Fisher, and more. Tickets now on sale. So in the words of Eddie Hearn,
you get up, you dress up, and you fucking show up.
And this is Johnny Escott for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. I am joined by Mr. Billy Nelson. Billy, how are we, mate?
I'm good, Johnny. How are you, mate? All right?
Good, yeah, I'm always good, thank you, my mate. So let's get straight to it. Anthony Joshua versus Dillian Whyte, the rematch. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it was inevitable it was going to happen. Personally, I don't think it's a great fight. The first fight was a very comprehensive win for AJ. It wasn't even close. Let's be perfectly honest. I mean, he gave him a bit of... Dylan threw that one left hook that had an effect in 7 rounds. Now, if you think you that's justifiable to have a rematch, then I think you're sadly mistaken. But he had the one good left hook in 7 rounds. Don't get me wrong, he became a better fighter after that fight under Mark Tibbs. He done really well under Mark Tibbs. I think he's going to look back in his career when he's a bit older and think, I really shouldn't have left Mark. That's when things started going wrong, and I think that's blatantly obvious it started going wrong. I'm not a great fan of the rematch, to be quite honest with you. I think it'll be the same result.
Both fought Jermaine Franklin recently, and both were quite... Well, yeah, they were criticised by a lot of boxing fans for their performances. Obviously, they've both got new trainers. Who do you think... Where have you seen the most improvement from either fighter under the new trainers?
I don't think I've seen any improvement in either of them against the fight and both their respective fights against Franklin. I think the only person who could have took credit out the fight and both fights was Franklin, because nothing was expected of him when he went the distance with both. I mean, I remember when he fought, I actually thought he beat Dillian Whyte, and after the fight, AJ says, "Oh, really? Dylan should have had him out in 3 or 4 rounds," which to me suggests that he thought he could have done likewise, and he went the distance. AJ went the distance with him, so it's kind of contradicting that statement that he'd made, regarding Dylan. And now you've got the two of them fighting each other, but I do think that AJ will probably stop him again because he's got a better IQ than Dylan.
Yeah, and obviously Joshua was heavily touted and still is to fight Deontay Wilder in Saudi Arabia. Do you think Joshua deserves some credit for taking a fight like Whyte now, especially when he could have just sat out the next few months and just waited for the Wilder fight? But instead, he has gone into a competitive fight just a few months before that.
I think he'd have got more credit if he fought somebody like Philip Hrgovic or Martin Bakole'S, up-and-coming fighters, live fighters. I think it's fair to say that Dillian Whyte has probably seen his best days. He might prove us wrong, and if he does, fair play to him. But certainly, you've not seen the best of Philip Hrgovic or Martin Bakole'S. So go and fight a live opponent before you go and fight Dillian Whyte. But that's not going to happen, is it?
So obviously, you mentioned Martin Bakole'S name there, and obviously you're Martin's trainer. Is Joshua Whyte a potential opponent for him next? Say the loser of this fight, because obviously it looks like the winner's going to go on and fight Deontay Wilder. Is that a fight you'd be interested in for Martin?
Martin would beat both AJ and Whyte. Would fight the winner and beat him. Obviously, the winner's going to go and fight Wilder, but I personally think whoever loses will retire, because where else is there for him to go? Unless there's... Well, I think they both like the pound note. Unless he stayed in the sport for monetary reasons, then we gladly fight either of them. Gladly fight either of them.
Is there anything...
And beat them. I mean, I've no doubt in my mind Martin beats both of them now.
I mean, I feel like either would be a brilliant fight, especially for boxing fans. I think both... Whyte or AJ would be all action. But is there anything in the pipeline for Martin? Is there any fight news upcoming?
There is. He's got a fight coming up. I can't mention it just now. Can't mention the date because there's other things happening. But he's got a fight. We've not got the opponent yet, although a couple of names have been mentioned. But Evans good. We'll have a fight. We'll have 2 fights this year. 2 more fights this year, and hopefully one of them will be a final eliminator for the world title. So he's in a great position going into 2024 with the WBA.
And what about the boys in?
I believe that when Wilder fights, say for talking sake, the winner of AJ and Whyte, then or if Wilder fights Andy Ruiz for the WBC, which is getting touted as a final eliminator, then I'm 100% sure the WBA will elevate Martin up to number 1 because he's number 2, and Wilder moved from number 3 to number 1 without fighting. So Martin will go back to number 1, and then they'll allocate an opponent to fight him for the final eliminator for the world title for 2024.
And obviously, obviously you've got the likes of Lewis Crocker and Zoltan in the gym. How is the gym going? How are both of them looking?
Lewis has been staying at Sultan's been staying at my house since the 4th of December. He went home for a few weeks after his first fight for us. He's fighting in 2 weeks. He's just an outstanding talent. The skills that boy's got are frightening. And Lewis Crocker, I've got to say, and I've openly said this in an interview, Lewis is the hardest puncher, pound for pound, I've ever held held for the pads for. Fucking frightening puncher. He's fighting on the 4th of August on Paddy McCrory's card in Belfast, and then there's a very big fight from after that. We were hoping to have it in August, but it looks as though it's going to be a wee bit later in the year.
Yeah, that's great to hear. So Bill, that's just about it. It was lovely to catch up with you, and I'm sure I'll catch up with you in a few weeks to discuss potentially when Martin's fight gets announced, or in the build up to AJ, or to get your views on the fight. It's 5 weeks away this weekend, isn't it? It's going to be quite a.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping to come over to Dubai because it's a place I love. Hoping to come over there for a wee week before Christmas. I'm actually I'm gonna away to Thailand for Christmas, New Year, but I'm gonna try and pop over for a week, so I'll catch up with you. I'll let you buy my lunch.
Yeah,
and I'm talking to English. I'll get you lunch, right? I'll get you lunch.
Us English are quite tight with our money. You should know that.
Nah, there's no quite about it.
Billy, it was an absolute pleasure, my mate.
All the best, buddy.
Cheers,
you take
mate.
care.
Take care. Bye.
Join us for the very first IFL Live at London's Indigo at the O2, Sunday, August the 13th, with me, Kugan Cassius, and some very special guests. Eddie Hearn, Darren Barker, Johnny Fisher, and more. Tickets now on sale. So in the words of Eddie Hearn,
You get up, you dress up, and you fucking show up.